Hare Krishna, devotees. Good evening from Sridham Mayapur. My name is Madhavananda Das, and we're speaking a little kathas about the appearance of Srimati Radharani in anticipation of her upcoming appearance day. And tonight we have a very special topic. We'd like to speak something about how Mahaprabhu observed Radhastami in the home of Pundarika Vidyanidhi. And we may also, if we have enough time, we'd like to speak a story about how one day Srimati Radharani became a cowherd boy. Very interesting subject. So we'd like to begin with a few prayers, and then we want to read something to you from Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, and from the purport of Srila Prabhupada. Gora Graganya Gana Gota Goloruharam Gauranga Gura Tamagopyara Kopa Vriksham Gopala Gada Ratidam Yati Singha Gora Govinda Deshika Varam Satatam Uttama Adama Kichuna Bachira Jachira Tile Kakola Kahe Premananda Emona Gauranga Hridoya Dariya Bola Bhaja Gauranga Kaha Gauranga Laha Gaurangera Namare Jai Jana Gauranga Bhaja Se Hoyamara Pranare. Hare Krishna devotees. I'm sorry I had our Zoom turned off. Good evening to everybody. We have a very special katha this evening in anticipation of the appearance day of Srimati Radharani. And we'd like to speak something about how Chaitanya Mahaprabhu worships Srimati Radharani. We'd just like to offer one short prayer from Srila Raghunath Das Goswami's Vishaka Nandari Stotra, or the prayer that brings Ananda to Vishaka. And he says there, Bhajami Radham Aravinda Netram Smarami Radham Madhura Smitashyam Vadami Radham Karuna Bharadram Tatomam Yasti Gatirna Kapi. I worship lotus-eyed Radha. I meditate on sweetly smiling Radha. I glorify supremely merciful Radha. She's the only goal of my life. I have no other goal. In the Chaitanya Charitamrita, Adi Lila chapter 4, text 106, Srila Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami is described. Radhikara Bhava Murti Prabhurantara Sehi Bhave Sukha Dukkha Ute Nirantara. The heart of Lord Chaitanya is the image of Shri Radhika's emotions. Thus feelings of pleasure and pain arise constantly therein. From Srila Prabhupada's purport. Lord Chaitanya's heart was full of the feelings of Srimati Radharani, and his appearance resembled hers. Srila Damodar has explained his attitude as Radha Bhava Murti, the attitude of Radharani. One who engages in sense gratification on the material platform can hardly understand Radha Bhav. Krishna.
Hari, we don't hear you, Prabhuji.
You hear me now. So, sorry.
Nobody can hear you.
You can hear me now, Prabhuji. We're reading from Chaitanya Charitamrita, Adi Lila chapter 4, text 106. Radhikara Bhava Murti Prabhurantara Se Bhava Sukhi Dukkha Uta Nirantara. The heart, please mute your microphones. Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Hari Bol, Hare Krishna. You can't hear me?
No, now we can.
Yeah, okay. So please mute your microphones, okay? Thank you. So, Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami says, the heart of Lord Chaitanya is the image of Sri Radhika's emotions. Thus feelings of pleasure and pain arise constantly therein. In his purport, Srila Prabhupada writes, Lord Chaitanya's heart was full of the feelings of Srimati Radharani, and his appearance resembled hers. Sri Damodar has explained his attitude as Radha Bhava Murti, the attitude of Radharani. One who engages in sense gratification on the material platform can hardly understand Radha Bhav. But one who is freed from the demands of sense gratification can understand it. Radha Bhav must be understood from the Goswamis, those who are actually controllers of the senses. From such authorized sources, it is to be known that the attitude of Srimati Radharani is the highest perfection of conjugal love, which is the highest of the 5 transcendental mellows, and it is the complete perfection of love of Krishna. These transcendental affairs can be understood on 2 platforms. One is called elevated, and the other is called super elevated. The loving affairs exhibited in Dwarka are the elevated form. The super elevated portion is reached in the manifestations of the pastimes of Vrindavan. The attitude of Lord Chaitanya is certainly super elevated. From the life of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, an intelligent person engaged in pure devotional service can understand that he always felt separation from Krishna within himself. In that separation, he sometimes felt that he found Krishna and was enjoying the meeting. The significance of this separation and meeting is very specific. If someone tries to understand the exalted position of Lord Chaitanya without knowing this, he's sure to misunderstand it. One must first become fully self-realized. Otherwise, one may misidentify the Lord as Nagara, or the enjoyer of the damsels of Braj, thus committing a mistake of rasabhas, or overlapping understandings. Vanchakalpadurubhischa kripasindubhyevacha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare. So this evening evening in Mayapur time, we'd like to speak something about a pastime from Narahari Chakravarti Thakur's Bhakti Ratnakar from the 12th wave, which describes how Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu observed Radhastami in the home of Pundarika Vidyanidhi. On one day, Narahari Chakravarti describes, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu told Pundarika Vidyanidhi,
Madhavananda Prabhu, I'm very sorry to disturb you, but I see that no one is recording it.
It's being recorded on Facebook and it's also being recorded here, Prabhuji. Thank you.
Okay, right. Thank you.
So Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu told Pundarika Vidyanidhi, tomorrow we'll observe the appearance ceremony of Srimati Radharani in your home. And Pundarika Vidyanidhi became very ecstatic to hear this. According to Srila Kavi Karnapur in his Gauragandash Deepika, Pundarika Vidyanidhi is none other than Maharaj Vrishabhanu in Krishna Lila, who's come again in Gaura Lila as a devotee, Pundarika Vidyanidhi. So Pundarika Vidyanidhi, he rushed home, he arranged everything for the festival, and the next day, Mahaprabhu came to the house of Pundarika Vidyanidhi along with his associates and followers, and they began to perform the Janma Abhishek, or the bathing ceremony of Srimati Radharani on her birthday. And Narahari Chakravarti Thakur has just given a very wonderful song describing that pastime and what Mahaprabhu did there that day and how he was feeling. I'd like to sing this with you. Ajugora Chanda Gana Saha Gopa Beshe Tile Tile Adika Vibola Sena Rase. Aju, today, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, in the dress of a cowherd boy, accompanied along Ganasaha, along with all of his associates, became overwhelmed with rasa. Hase laha laha chahe, Gadadhara Pane Vahaye Anandavari Dara Dunoyane. The son of Sachi, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Hase Laha Laha, he began to laugh, and Laha moving to and fro. He would look towards Gadadhar Pandit, while tears of ecstasy were flowing down his eyes. And why is he looking towards Gadadhar Pandit? Because Gadadhar Pandit is Srimati Radharani. Some Vaishnavas, they say, well, how is it that Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is Sri Krishna Chaitanya Radha Krishna Nahiyanya, or the combined form of Radha and Krishna? Then how can you say the Gadadhar is Radha? It's a little complicated, and that's another big topic to speak about Gadadhar Tattva, but just to touch a little tiny bit on it. Some Vaishnavas, they say that after Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu entered into the heart of Srimati Radharani, as Rupa Goswami describes in his Dvitiya Chaitanyasrikam, Rasastomam Hitva, that he entered into the heart of Radha and stole her mood. And they say that whatever's left is Gadadhar Pandit, after Krishna stole that mood. And therefore, Gadadhar Pandit appears on the day of Amavasya, or the dark moon, and there's no moon present whatsoever, because there's nothing left there, they say. Mukunda Madhava Vasu Ulasahi Aya Radhika Janamacharit Shabbe Gaya. With great ecstasy, Ulasahi Aya. The great kirtan leaders, Mukunda, Madhava Ghosh, and Basu Ghosh, these three brothers, they began to sing the Radhika Janma Charit, or the pastimes of Srimati Radharani's birth. And this is a tradition to this day of Gaudiya Vaishnavas. If you go to many of the small temples or big temples in Jagannath Puri, you'll find the Goswamis and Babajis and different Vaishnavas. Traditionally on this day, on day of Radhastami, they come together and they sing many, many pastimes about the appearance of Radharani and the glories of Radharani. So in that kirtan, Bhaji Kola Kartala Bhuvana Mangala, the whole world became auspicious with the sounds of the Mridanga and the kartals. Nachi Panudhara Nikora Talamala. And everyone was dancing so much the earth began to tremble. Goridasa Adi Nache. All the devotees, beginning with Goridas Pandit, began to dance. Barakori Kande, while carrying pots on their shoulders. Dekita se gopa vesha keba tirabande. And if someone would just see the dress they had of cowherd boys, who would be able to sit quietly? Katasate Nachi Pundarika Vidyanidhi. Amongst all of them, Pundarika Vidyanidhi was there. Chadaiya Navana Haladi Duda Dadi. He was dancing like anything, like a madman. And he was snatching away the butter, the haldi, and the yogurt that the devotees had in those pots. And meanwhile, Nitai, Advaita Shivasadi, Ranga Deki, seeing the joking pastimes of Nityananda Prabhu, Advaita Chari and Srivas, Base Suk Samudri Fidati Nadi Anki. Everyone began to float on the ocean of happiness, and they couldn't take their eyes away. Ki Nari Purusha Daya, Ranga Dekite. Dandaiya Angane Chahaye Charibite. And whether someone was ki nari, purush, whether they were a nari or purush, a woman or a man, everyone came running there. Daya e ranga dekite, I want to see these pastimes. And they were all standing there packed together inside that courtyard. Deki goparupe madhuri anupam. Keha kahe nache iki kanakira kam. When people saw the form of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu dancing like a cowherd boy, someone was saying, what is this golden treasure, this astonishing treasure? Is Kanaka Kam? This dancing golden treasure, Nache Ki Kanakara Kam? At that time, Deva Gana Nache Kusuma Vrishti Kori, Jaya Jaya Diya Range Nache Narahari. At that time, all the demigods began to dance and rain down showers of flowers, saying, all glories, all glories. So a question arises. Why is Gauridas Pandit specifically mentioned in the fifth line, which says, Gauridasa Adi Nachi Bada Kori Duhande? Why particularly mention Gauridas Pandit? In Kavi Karnapur's Gauragandish Dipika, it's described as Subalo Ya Priya Shrestha Sai Gauridasa Pandita. That Subal became Gauridas Pandit. Gauridas Pandit is Subal, Krishna's very dear associate in Krishna Lila. And we just finished telling a story a few minutes before on Facebook about a wonderful pastime where Srimati Radharani dresses in Subal Vesh. And it's a tradition every year during the month of Kartik. They dress Radharani up like a cowherd boy, like Subal. And on that day, you have Radha Charan Darshan. You have the darshan of the lotus feet of Srimati Radharani. What is the purpose of speaking about Mahaprabhu as a cowherd boy and focusing on this when he's speaking about Srimati Radharani? We'd like to offer a possible explanation from a very rare, little-known book, which we've been working on translating for some years. It's a book by Manohar Das, who's a devotee in the line of Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. And the book is called Vaidagya Vilas. And in the third chapter, it's called Sri Radhika Gocharana Leela. It speaks about the pastime once where Srimati Radharani became a cowherd boy and went to herd the cows. So in anticipation of Radhastami, we'd like to speak something about this, to try to understand something about the mood of Radharani, the glories of Radharani, and how the devotees worship her. In the beginning of Vaidagya Vilas, chapter 3, he quotes a verse, a very beautiful verse, from Srila Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami's Govinda Lilamrita, in chapter 1. Kunja Goshtami Santi Pravishati Kurute Dohana Sanadayam Prata Sayam Chalilam Virahati Saki Bi Sangha Vicharayandaha Madjane Chatanaktam Vila Sati Vipane Radhaya Daparane Goshtam Yati Pradoshi Ramayati Surido Yasa Krishna Vatannaha. May Krishna, who at the end of the night goes from Kunja, leaves the Kunja and goes to the cowherd village of Gokul, of Vrindavan, who in the morning and evening performs the pastime of milking the cows and taking his meals, who herds the cows and plays with his friends at milking time, who at noon and night plays in the forest with Radha, and who in the afternoon goes back to the village, and the evening gives joy to his friends. May he be pleased with us. So we were discussing just a few minutes ago about the importance of Srimati Radharani in approaching Krishna. It's described by Srila Dhyan Chandra Goswami in his Gauragovinda Smarana Archana Paditi. He says, Vina Radha Prasadina Krishna Praptina Jayate Tata Shri Radhika Krishna Smaranayosa Samyuta. Without the mercy of Radha, you can't attain Krishna. And therefore we should always remember them together. So actually all of Braj Leela involves Srimati Radharani. The Bhagavatam confirms this in the Mula Shlokas in the second canto. It says that the Anvaya Vyatireka Bhyan Yatshat Savakta Sarvata, directly and indirectly. This Bhagavatam is given directly and indirectly. So directly we don't always see how everything is based on Srimati Radharani. But our acharyas have described that Radharani fuels everything in Braj. She gives inspiration to Mother Yashoda in her Vatsalya Priti. She gives inspiration to Madhu Mangal and Sridham and the cowherd boys and Sakyarats. She gives inspiration to Ratak and Patra and the devotees in Dasyaras and servitorship. And she also gives inspiration to all of the gopis of Vrindavan. Everyone in Vrindavan is directly or indirectly inspired by Srimati Radharani. Indeed, not just the moving living entities, but also the non-moving living entities. And Srila Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami describes that when Krishna goes to herd the cows with the boys, which is a pastime where he's experiencing Sakya Ras, when he goes out there, Brinda Devi orchestrates the sunlight in such a way and the forest in such a way that Krishna sees everything in a golden color. And Krishna became struck with ecstasy, being reminded of Srimati Radharani. So, Vaidabhya Vilas describes that on one day after meeting with Krishna, Srimati Radharani then began to think of separation from him. Because this union and separation, the Sanbhog and Vipralamba, these are two embankments of the same river. And you can't have one without the other. So when there's meeting, then immediately they begin to think about separation. And Radharani was thinking to herself, Saka Sange Prananata Jabe Gocharana Eta Kala Kikori Rabashunya Bhavana. So she's thinking, my Lord of my life, my Prananath Krishna, Jabi Gocharana, very soon he's going to go with his friends to herd the cows. Eta Kala Kikori Rabashunya Bhavana. How can I live with him for that time when he's gone? And Manohar Das goes on to describe the words of Srimati Radharani at that time. Ki koriya jabe mora e bahu kala nari kori abodhavidhi gatala janjala. She's saying, oh, how bahukala is going to be such a long period of time. How can I pass? How can I survive this? And she curses Providence. She said, Nari Koriya Bodhi, why did you make me a woman? It's very, very bad. Saka haitam yajadi sange rahitama nijamano matakama puna koritama tahana hoila mora sadhana purila chirakala duki kevala muradina gela. She thought, if I could have been a boy, if I could have been a cowherd boy, then I could be with him and then I could fulfill my desire. But if that doesn't happen, then chirakala duke kevala muradina gela. My whole life will just be passed in sorrow and suffering. E bhava bhavite vega korele dharana. Radharani started thinking like this. Prananate bolimui jabigo charana. She decided, I have to go to herd the cows. Then I can be with my Prananath Krishna. So taba sange nata raba unakshana. Darshana koribe nata taba gocharana. So she's thinking like that, and she thought to herself, I should take permission from the Sakis, and I'm going to go and herd the cows. Parihasamani kori Saki hamsi kori. The gopis, they thought this is just a joke. You're going to go and herd the cows? It's not easy work to go and herd the cows. And so they laughed, and they said, yes, very good, you go herd the cows. She wants to make friendship with the cowherd boys now. So you go graze the cows. And they told her, Jao, vilambiti, nahi prayojana, go. Krishna's waiting for you. Tomalavari nata vara yatnamana. And Radharani says, yes, I have to go. Very, very good. And then all of a sudden the gopis began to realize, wait a minute, she's serious. She might actually do this. Because Radharani, she's famous in Braj as Pagalini Radha, or the mad Radha. Her madness is not an ordinary kind of madness. It's called unmadana, or divine madness, a madness of love of Krishna. Sometimes we give some seminar based on a book that we've seen by one scholar who was studying Gaudiya Vaishnavism. The book is called The Madness of the Saints. And in every tradition, there have been great saints who've become mad. But the crest jewel of all the mad saints is Srimati Radharani. So the gopis are thinking, maybe she's actually serious. She might just do this. He said, wait a minute, you can't do this, you're a princess. And Radharani says, no, I'm going. And then the Sakis, they started getting really nervous. And said, this is not a good idea. So they tried to speak in such a way to make Radharani nervous. Dada Balarama Sangi Saka Bahutara Tahate Vishamatava Jatilara Gara. I said, hey, Radha, if you go there, Balaram is going to be there. Now, Srimati Radharani becomes very, very shy around Balaram. And not only that, what's going to happen with Jatila when she comes looking for you? Hena Shamoy, just at that time, Batu, Madhumango, Sanite Subal came along with Subal Saka, who is Gauridas Pandit in the song that we're just singing about Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's observance of Radhastami in the house of Pundarika Vidyanidhi. And when they came, Batu, Madhumango, and Subal, then they came to understand the sorrow of Srimati Radharani. So they told her, hey, don't worry, there's a solution. Subal said, you can go there dressed as Subal, and then I'll wear your dress and I'll stay here. And you can be with our Krishna. Sakasange Sada Mora Rahitake Dure Balarama Bhoya Kichuna Kora Antare. You can be with our Saka Krishna, and you keep a little distance. Don't be afraid of Balaram. It's okay. Batu Arjuna Adi Shaka Sohai Rahibi. Batu, Madhumangal, Arjuna, and others will be on your side. No one's going to know anything. So these devotees, these cowherd boys, these are called Priyanama Sakas. And Rupa Goswami in his Radha Krishna Ganadesh Deepika, he explains that these boys, they're very, very special cowherd boys who sometimes are privy to the pastimes of Radha and Krishna. So when Radharani heard that, she felt some relief. Shravane Radha, Tabe Ananda Vatila, she became very happy and relieved. And then the Sakis, Saki Gana, Roy, Tabi, Bholite, Lagila, the Sakis, they started crying. Shri Radha Vihani Mora Ki Prakara, but without Radharani, how can we stay? So Sakale Rakhala, we're all going to become Rakhalas, we're all going to become cowherd boys, we'll all go to the forest as cowherd boys. This is Gaura Leela. And this is the song that we're hearing from Narahari Chakravarti in Bhakti Ratnakar. How Chaitanya Mahaprabhu dressed as a cowherd boy, and all those gopis were also there, and they were also dressed as cowherd boys. So at that time, Radharani gave her dress of Subal, and Krishna personally began to decorate Radharani as a cowherd boy. And there's a very nice song by Dr. Vilas describing the beauty of Srimati Radharani dressed as a cowherd boy. It's a little long, and I'd like to go through this pastime. At times a little short, so I'm just going to give an English summary of it. That they dressed her in a blue dress around her waist, and it had some special ornaments on her head, some ankle bells on her feet, different kinds of nupur on her feet. The gopis wear one type of nupur, but the cowherd boys also have nupur, or ankle bells on their feet. There was a banamala, or forest garland around her neck. She had special nose rings and earrings, and she looked like a typical cowherd boy. The cowherd boys, in other words, they have a lot of body piercing. And they gave her a nice stick and cane and some rope. And then Srimati Radharani, dressed as a cowherd boy, entered into the group. And Shri Radhika Vesha Deki Govinda Vibhor. When Krishna saw Radharani dressed like this, Krishna became completely ecstatic. Sakyadi Sabaneti Bahi Prema Lord. He became so happy when the gopis saw that. They all began to cry. And then Subal dressed up like Srimati Radharani and winked. Actually, I'm Radha. And at that time, when Srimati Radharani was about to leave to herd the cows and leave all the gopis behind, it's described there. Sakalera kanishta kinkari kandikai, Shri Radhika sangi amis jabi se. That the youngest, Sakalera Kanishta, Kanishta means the smallest or youngest, amongst all of them, the youngest Kinkari, the youngest maidservant of Srimati Radharani, Kandikai, she began to cry. Shri Radhika Sangi Ami Jabi Se Nishchoy, I must go with Radha. And Radharani then she turned to that young Manjari and she said, Shri Radha Bolina Mora, Shangi Ekachai. Nahi Khanda Shangi Laba E Vishat Banai. She said, don't cry. I'm going to take you with me. You have to come. So we have to change your dress also. You'll also dress like a cowherd boy. And so then Radharani dresses a cowherd boy along with this young Kinkari, this young maidservant. They all went to the house of Nanda Maharaj. And all the boys came out. And all the boys, everyone was dressed up like cowherd boys, naturally carrying horns and sticks. And at that time, Mother Yashoda and Rohini came out and they were looking. Look at Subal. Subal looks very special today. Now, Mother Yashoda and Rohini, they never look at Subal. They always look at Krishna, or sometimes Balaram. But today, somehow, Subal caught the attracted the eyes of Mother Yashoda and Rohini. And they said, Kia Purva Vesha Aji Deki Je Subal. How wonderful Subal is dressed today. How beautiful he looks. And at that time, Madhumangal Bhattu got a little nervous. He said, we have to go. Let's go. It's time to leave. We have to take care of the cows. And so those boys began to go. There were innumerable boys. Asankhya Balaka go, KK Ganam. There are innumerable boys and innumerable cows. No one could count all of them. So in some of the Gocharna Leela Kirtan songs, which we'll find in some different Gaudiya Vaishnava books, it's described, we're not singing those songs today. It's not so appropriate in one sense maybe because I'm just jumping into this. But it's described very interesting that when Krishna goes out to herd the cows, he goes behind the cows. It's mentioned in several of the songs in Gocharna Leela. What is the significance of that? Why does Krishna stay behind? In Vaidagya Vilas, the reason is given why Krishna goes along behind the cows. Apanara Juta Krishna Bahira Koriya. Radha Loy Paschati Dadana Rishtahiya. Krishna was staying at the back along with Srimati Radharani. And then Krishna, he waved to his father and mother, Pita, Mata, Shakalera, Vinatiko. He told them, Narayana Seva Muri Asi Tvariko. Don't worry, I'll worship Narayan when I come back. And then he winked at Subal, who's dressed as Radharani. And along with Radharani, he started going off to the forest. At that time, Vaidagya Vilas describes, Divya Shringa Gogana, Nana Varna Dare, Hamba Hamba, Rabakori, Chale Tare Tare. All the cows then begin to move, Hamba Hamba. They begin to make a very loud, mooing sound. Very, very beautiful. At that time, Krishna was there next to Srimati Radharani. Krishna Boli, he said, Prana Priya, hey Radhe, my Prana Priya, Godana Chalo, you should call for the cows. Davali, Shamali Boli, Avanakara, you should call for all the names of all the different cows. And Madhumangal, seeing that Radharani looked a little confused because she'd never done that before. She's not used to being a cowherd boy. She doesn't know what to do. So Madhu Mangal jumped up and said, look at me, I know how to do this, I'm very expert. Lampadiya batu bole, mora pane chao, hiya hiya, shabdakori, godana chalao. He said, just watch me. And he started making the sound. Hiya, hiya, shabda, shabda sound, kori, godana chalo. And he started driving the cows. At that time, Midu Manda Hansi Rad, Boliti Lajahar, Shrimati Radharani became very shy. And she was smiling in a very, very shy way. Say Shobha Darshan, when Krishna saw that beautiful darshan of Radharani's shy, smiling face, Krishna Mahasukapai, he got so much happiness. And Madhu Mangal at that time, Bhatta Bole, he's called out, hey, Deka Kalindi Chalijai, look, Kalindi, the cow, she's drifting apart from the other cows. So he told Radharani, Sasti hate, lai shigra fideliti hoy. Shigra means very quickly. Quickly you go, take a stick and make her come back. And Srimati Radharani picked up the stick and she's kind of looking at the stick and she took a few steps toward Kalindi. She'd never done that before. She didn't know what, so she came back smiling. And then that maidservant, that Kinkari who had gone with Srimati Radharani, she said, it's okay. This is hard work, taking care of these cows. You don't know how to do all of this. So, meanwhile, Manohar Das describes in Vaidagya Vilas what was going on in the house of Nanda Maharaj. That Mother Yashoda, she decided that with great love and affection that Srimati Radharani, she sees Subal dressed as Radha. And Mother Yashoda is thinking that Subal is Radha. Right? This is part of the whole thing. Radharani is dressed like Subal, and Subal is dressed like Radharani. Now Subal is in the home of Nanda Maharaj with Mother Yashoda. And Mother Yashoda says, oh, my dear Radha, we want to give you some nice dress and ornaments and things and sweets. And so they gave all those things to Srimati Radharani, actually, Subal, and you can dress like this when you go home. And so then she gave some sweets also for Jatila. And then they left, they went to Javat, they gave all those things to Jatila. And at that time, Jatila became very affectionate to Radharani. And she reached over and grabbed Subal, who's dressed like Srimati Radharani, with two very appropriately placed mangoes. That's another topic. And Jatila kisses her on the cheek and takes Subal, Radharani, and puts him on her lap. And Subal's panicking. I really have to go. I have something to do. And finally, he manages to slip away from Jatila. He almost was going to die. And meanwhile, back with Srimati Radharani and the Cowherd boys, Madhu Mangal was behaving in a very rascal kind of way. Madhu Mangal decided he's going to blackmail Srimati Radharani. And he told Radharani, he came over to look around both ways to see nobody else was listening. This is the original blackmail the mafia does, something like that. And Madhu Mangal leaned over to her and he said, Ladu deha nahi mui, Baladeva daki, Daka bhangi mukha kori, Radha agritaki. He said, give me a ladu, otherwise I'm going to call Balaram. And Radharani looked really panicked, and then she wasn't giving a ladu, and Madhu Mangal started, he started to call out for Balaram. Tati diti mukha shobha Krishna kori pan, mahasuka pan Radha dasi panichan. At that time, Srimati Radharani's face, all the blood drained from her face, became very white. She became very, very frightened. And Krishna enjoyed the beauty of Radharani's face at that time. Ingiti paya seha batuke ladu diva. At that time, Srimati Radharani looked, Jesus gave a glance at her maidservant, who immediately understood the desire of Srimati Radharani. And then ladu pai anande batu. With great happiness, she gave that ladu to Madhu Mangal, who nachichi ladila. Then Madhu Mangal began to dance in great ecstasy. And then Krishna, he told Balaram, he said, hey, Balai, it's been very hard today. Why don't you take care of the cows? I'm going to go for a short time with my friend Subal in the forest, and we'll be right back. And so in this way, Krishna enjoyed the pastimes of herding the cows along with Srimati Radharani. And in this way, we can see that all of the pastimes of Braj, whatever rasa they're in, Srimati Radharani, Anvaya Vyatirekabhyam Yatshat Savata Sarvata, directly or indirectly, she's always part of those pastimes. And therefore, Srila Prabhupada has described that we don't separate Radha from Krishna. He's described this in one lecture we're just reading from. Let's see if I can find it. This is on Radhastami Day on the 5th of September 1973. And Prabhupada said, the aim of life is to satisfy Lord Vishnu. Vishnu is the origin, Krishna is the origin of Vishnu Tattva. And he's pleased through Radharani. Therefore, we don't keep Radha Krishna alone. No, we keep Radha Krishna. First, you have to worship Radharani. So her appearance day, Radhastami, is today. This is our philosophy, to please Krishna through Radharani. And as today is the auspicious day of Radharani's appearance, we should offer Pushpanjali and pray, Radharani, kindly be merciful. And tell about me to your Krishna. Krishna is yours. Krishna is not independent. Krishna is Radharani's property. So you have to approach Krishna through Radharani. Today is an auspicious day. Worship Radharani very nicely and be happy. So in this song, then, from Bhakti Ratnakar by Narahar Chakravarti Thakur, where he describes about how Chaitanya Mahaprabhu observed the Janma Utsav, or the birth festival of Srimati Radharani in the home of Pundarika Vidyanidhi. It has a deep purport to it. And unless we understand something about Srimati Radharani dressing as a cowherd boy, we can't really understand it. And this is the perfect synthesis of what Srila Prabhupada is saying, that we can't approach Krishna without Srimati Radharani. And therefore it's said by Krishna in the Naradiya Purana to Narad Muni, Satyam Satyam Puna Satyam 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 Eva Puna Punaha. So I'm telling you, this is the truth, again it's the truth, it's the truth, it's the truth, it's the truth, again and again. This is the truth. Vina Radha Prasadina, Mat Prasadina Vidyate. Without the mercy of Radharani, you can't get my mercy. And so Vrindavan is a place of mercy. Vrindavan is Madhurja Moidam. It's a place of sweetness. But it's sweet because it's permeated with the love of Radha and Krishna. And in different pastimes, we won't go to those today. But some pastimes we hear about the separation of Radha and Krishna. And when Radha and Krishna are separated, then all the residents of Vrindavan feel very, very sad. Because they're not happy unless Radha and Krishna are brought together. And therefore, Narottam Das Thakur, he sings, Radha Krishna Prana Mora Yugala Kishora, that Jivane Maharani, that in my life, my death, my everything is to bring Radha and Krishna together. This is everything for the devotees. And on this day, in these days, we want to begin to meditate on Srimati Radharani. Sometimes we meet people in the parking lots or other places, and they say, how is it you say that God is a man? And we say, yes, we say that he has that male feature, but there's actually a male and a female feature. And of the two, the female feature is more powerful than the male feature. Just as you can't have the sunshine without the heat of the sun or the light of the sun. The Shakti and the Shaktiman always come together. And so you can't separate Radharani from Krishna. And of the two, Krishna becomes subservient to Radharani. Even though he's the supreme controller, the greatest Ishvara, he becomes subservient to Radharani. Just as Krishna is known as Asamurdva. Asamurdva means someone who no one can be equal to, no one can be greater than. And he's Asamurdva in his aspect of Bhagavan, that he's full in all six opulences. He's the most powerful, he's the most beautiful, he's all-knowing. He has all six different opulences. Therefore, he's Asamurdva. In the same way, Srimati Radharani is also Asamurdva. No one can be equal to her or greater than her in the realm of devotion. And even Krishna himself can't be equal to Srimati Radharani, nor can he be greater than Srimati Radharani in terms of devotion. And therefore, this verse that we began speaking from Adi chapter 4, describes the heart of Lord Chaitanya is the image of Sri Radhika's emotions. Thus, feelings of pleasure and pain arise constantly therein. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Krishna therefore comes as Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to taste the mood of Srimati Radharani. Unless he comes in the mood of a devotee, he can't understand the mood of Radha. So I'm going to stop there, and we'd like to invite the devotees, both online, Jai Gaur Chand Prabhu is online on Facebook, okay? And Krishna Brajananda Prabhu. Nice to see you, Brajananda. We miss your Sangha. Jai Gaur. So I'd like to ask the devotees if they have any reflections or just to know what you're walking away with. Let me begin with this by reading what Jai Gaur Prabhu has written. I says, Hare Krishna Prabhu, I love how the youngest maidservant gets to come with Radha. The impression I get is that she's not so, quote, big and important, so to speak, but because she cries, Radhika says, don't worry, you're coming with me. Yeah, it said there, Shakale Kanishta, out of all the different gopis, Shakala, the Kanishta, the youngest one. And because she's crying and crying, and Radhika, her heart melts. So yes, yes, you're coming with me. It's okay. Don't worry. Very nice reflection. Okay. Anybody else have any reflections, any comments, anything you'd like to say? Lynn, I hope that this is understandable to you. This is not quite like Buddhism. Nice to see your smile. Hare Krishna. Okay, anybody else have anything here? Krishna Kun? Sachitanoy Prabhu? Anapayani Radha, what are you walking away with today? Okay, and then we'll have Lila Purushottam Prabhu. I'm sorry, we had some snafu. I gave one lecture live on Facebook for about 8 minutes, and I shut it down, and then I started another lecture, and I didn't have the mic thing set up right and things. I'm very sorry. So here's Anapayani Radha, who's going to speak really loud so everybody can hear her.
So I'm walking away with a bliss in my heart because the stories are so sweet. Mahaprabhu observed appearance of Srimati Radharani and the story about Radharani becoming a cowherd boy. But I have a question. I'm so sorry for such a stupid question. I guess I missed the most important part. I didn't understand how the story with the Radharani cowherd boy connected with this with her appearance there, and Mahaprabhu, please forgive me for this.
No, I'm raising it as a question because nobody says it. And here, Narahari Chakravarti Thakur is a very Rasik Vaishnava. He speaks about Mahaprabhu's observance of Radhastami. And what does he say? He says that Mahaprabhu dresses like a cowherd boy for Radhastami. Excuse me, Radharani is a gopi, and what are you doing dressed like a cowherd boy? And then it pointedly, out of all the different devotees, it doesn't mention any of the devotees. It mentions the singers, it mentions Nitai, Advaita, and Srivas, who are the most prominent associates, but it doesn't mention any cowherd boys except one in the song. Goridasa Adi Nachi Bharakori Kandi. It mentions Goridas Pandit. And why in this song is he speaking about Mahaprabhu? This is our question. Why is he speaking about Mahaprabhu observing Radhastami and dressing like a cowherd boy? What is it? Why wasn't he dressed like a gopi? Why doesn't he get in that mood? And amongst his associates, everybody's dressing like cowherd boys. Why is it only mentioning Goridas Pandit? So Goridas Pandit is Subal Saka. And so I'm offering this story today, not that it's there's a direct line between the two, but I'm suggesting that this is an answer to this question that we're raising. Why Mahaprabhu is observing, why he's acting like a cowherd boy on this day, on Radhastami day, and why the special quality of Subal, of Gauridas Pandit, because Gauridas Pandit is Subal. And it's that Subal Vesh, when Srimati Radharani dresses like a cowherd boy. Otherwise, how does it make any sense that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is dressing like a cowherd boy, and why Gauridas Pandit? Doesn't make any sense. That's my thought. Sachitanya.
Just a technical question. Maybe I got lost in the story, but at one point you were mentioning that Krishna was personally decorating Radharani as a cowherd boy.
Mm-hmm.
And then, why was that? Because she's supposed to go and see Krishna. And how is it that Krishna is personally decorating him?
It's said that we were going a little fast, that Madhu Mangal and some of the boys, seeing how Srimati Radharani was so disturbed, that they went to Krishna. And they said, you've got to come, that Radharani's in this situation. And so then Krishna was dressing Radharani personally like a cowherd boy in a very, very expert way. And it's a very wonderful thing because generally we hear that it's usually the mood of the servant to dress the deity of Krishna. And the topmost servant, of course, of Krishna is Srimati Radharani. But in Krishna Leela, it's a very wonderful thing. We hear not just in this pastime, but other pastimes also, that Krishna reverses those roles. It's called Viparita Bhav, when the roles of Radha and Krishna become reversed. And Krishna wants to serve Srimati Radharani. And by serving Srimati Radharani, he shows us the ideal example of the best pujari. There's another story we may speak something on Wednesday in this regard also. Yeah.
This morning I was telling it's in Prabhupada's memories, one story where one devotee was mentioning that Srila Prabhupada mentions that the highest service is actually to be a pujari.
Mm-hmm.
Because usually, we heard the book distribution and go and get them, which is true. But in this particular time, he says pujari is like the highest devotional service. And if you analyze all the different things that we do, you dress Krishna, you feed Krishna, you touch Krishna, you do everything very personal like that, like the gopis, like 64 artistic qualities. So it makes a lot of sense too.
I think also that we shouldn't really make such a distinction in one sense between all these services, and that the proper person, just like there's a wonderful story we may speak on Wednesday about Krishna when he becomes Ramika. Ramika is a gopi. And it's a long story, but Ramika comes to Srimati Radharani offering service, and Radharani asked her, for him, what kind of service are you expert in? And Ramika says, well, I'm expert in all services. So that's the nature of the gopis, that's the nature of the Vaishnavas. They should be expert in all services. And in one sense, in an absolute higher sense, being a pujari is the same as being a preacher. Because the pujari is bringing the devotees there to Krishna. The pujari is decorating Krishna, the deity, in such a way to attract the hearts of outside people. And so the Bhukta when he's going on, he can be thinking, this is deity worship that I'm going and doing. And the pujari, when he's dressing the deity, can be thinking, this is preaching what I'm doing. And they're both correct. Jai Gaur Prabhu asked the question, he says, we've been having a discussion here about Shanta Ras and whether it exists in Vrindavan, and it seems to be confusing still, although I found a verse in Madhya 19:218 where Kaviraj Goswami says there's no trace of intimacy in Shanta Ras, and Prabhupada says Shanta Bhaktas worship Paramatma and Brahman, and they have no personal relationship with Krishna, but have heard other things in other places. Well, this is a controversial topic, which I've heard debated amongst higher Vaishnavas in different lines for some time. And I can't say that I can offer an absolute answer to that question, but I can give a little bit of a report on what each of the different groups says. On one hand, we have statements like one you're reading in Chaitanya Charitamrita, which describes there's no trace of intimacy in Shanta Ras. And we hear that Vrindavan Dham is Madhurja Mohi Dham, that everything there is full of sweetness. It's permeated by Madhurja Ras. On the other hand, sometimes our acharyas, they say that the trees in Vrindavan, they're in Shanta Ras, and the plants, they're in Shanta Ras. But then other people say that no, even the trees in Vrindavan, they're also permeated with Madhurja Ras, because they're assisting the pastimes of Radha and Krishna. Don't think those are just ordinary plants that you can step on or just pick some fruits or flowers from. Yeah, Sachitana is pointing out the Jamuna River embraces Krishna. And these plants, they're giving their leaves and flowers to be decorated by Krishna through the hand of Srimati Radharani. So some Vaishnavas say that there actually is no Shanta Ras. I would offer a possible reconciliation, which I haven't read, but one that just comes to my mind and heart. And that is that, in one sense, both things can be true, said. Because obviously the life, the relationship a tree has with Krishna, or some flowers have with Krishna, is Shanta. There's no trace of intimacy in that. So in one sense you could say that, but on the other hand, because those plants in Vrindavan are not ordinary plants, and because they're permeated with Madhurja Ras, at the same time you can say this other thing. So this is the tricky nature of Gaudiya Vaishnavas. It's my suggestion. Whenever they're asked a tough question that they can't answer, they say, well, Prabhu, it's a chincha beta beta. It's simultaneously one and different. But in this regard, I can actually see how it could be looked at in both ways. How someone could say, from one technical perspective, that the plants are in Shanta Ras. But in another sense, it's Madhurja Moidam. And everything there, including the Jamuna and the trees and plants and everything, they're serving Krishna with great intimacy. So both things could be said. It depends upon the perspective. That would be my suggestion. Very good question. Thank you. Now I see Lila Purushottam Prabhu is like on the edge of his chair. Do you have some comment or some reflection or something, Prabhu?
Well, I wanted to ask, actually, you've been quoting these words of Srila Prabhupada from his lecture on Radhastami, and what came to my mind was this story with Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati. He was once at Radhakund, and there was some wealthy man. You know the story.
We just printed it in our last issue of Bindu.
Yeah, doing the parikrama.
He's actually a king. He's doing parikrama around Radhakund. Go ahead.
Yeah. So and then the answer of Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati that he's actually absolutely opposite to our
Right.
That he's trying to serve Radharani to get to Krishna, which may sound quite similar to what Srila Prabhupada stated in a way on that lecture. So if you could offer some reconciliation in that matter.
Yeah, okay. Well, first of all, to support what you're saying, sometimes devotees, Gaudiya Vaishnavas, devotees in Prabhupada's line, they go to Vrindavan and they see some far out things that Brijbasis do, and they say, wow, that's really cool, I really like that. And they come back, and I've seen Radhastami festivals where they start singing some unusual songs that I don't see sung amongst Gaudiya Vaishnavas, like Radhe, Radhe, Shyam Ladhe. I've heard that in different temples. It sounds really sweet, it's really rasik sounding. And you see that there's different Vaishnavas going around Govardhan Hill and places doing parikrama, and they're chanting. And one of them's chanting Radhe, Radhe, and then the other person said Shyam Ladhe, like that. It's sweet. But that's not our mood. The meaning of that prayer is, O Srimati Radharani, please give me Krishna. If we were going to sing our prayer, we would be singing Krishna, Krishna, Radhe Milade. Or dear Krishna, please let us have association and service to Srimati Radharani. Now, as regards to Srila Prabhupada's comment, I also marked that. But I thought to myself, in a similar way that our Gaudiya Vaishnava Acharyas stress that Krishna is the son of Devaki, and that Krishna appeared in Mathura. But that's just not the fact. And if you read what Rupa Goswami says, and Baladi Vidyabhushan says, and Vishnu Chakravarti Thakur says, and so many of our acharyas, Srila Prabhupada himself, in one purport in the 10th canto, that Krishna is directed the son of Yashoda. So then why does Srila Prabhupada so many times say that Krishna appeared in Mathura and Krishna is the son of Devaki for certain types of people? And so in this lecture that Prabhupada gave in London in very early time, he was speaking in a general way for people. That's my understanding of it. But in a more confidential way, our prayer is Krishna, Krishna, Radhe Milade. Okay? Nice to see you, Mataji. Hare Krishna. Okay, anybody else have some reflections, something they want to share with us from today's Katha? Otherwise, we're going to go ahead and we're going to stop then. So I want to thank everybody very much for taking part. And on Wednesday, we're going to have a double-header program. We're going to have a program with Niranjan Maharaj starting at 10, our time. And I'm going to give a katha in the morning, normal morning time from 8 to 10, but it's going to go all the way till about 9:30, much later than we normally do, half an hour longer. And we'll speak something more, some philosophy and some pastimes also about Srimati Radharani. So thank you very much to everybody. We missed you, Barney Tai Prabhu, in our last session. Nice to see you again. Hope everything's okay. Okay, thank you all very much. Grantada Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srimati Radharani ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Vanchakalpa Darubhishcha, Kripa Sindhu Deva Cha, Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha, Ananda Koti Vaishnava